The Trump administration is moving this country very aggressively into an authoritarian society where the rule of law and our Constitution are being ignored and undermined in order to give more power to the White House and the billionaires who now control our government. I fear very much that under President Trump, we are not seeing a government of the people, by the people, for the people, but rather a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, and for the billionaire class. And what is really interesting is that none of this is happening behind closed doors. It's not being done in secret. It's right out there for everybody to see. I think now is the time for the American people to come together, to not allow those who want to divide us up by the color of our skin or our sexual orientation.
It might be helpful to take a hard look at where we are as a nation and how we can best go forward. And let me be honest with you in saying that we are in an extraordinarily pivotal and volatile moment in American history, and things are moving very, very rapidly. The most important point that I want to stress today is how fast our country is evolving into an oligarchic society and into two very different Americas. On one hand, we have an America that consists of less than 1,000 billionaires, not a whole lot of people in a nation of 340 million, who have an unprecedented amount of wealth and power and have never, ever had it so good. That's one America. The other America, where the vast majority of our people live, consists of tens of millions of families who are struggling to put food on the table, pay their bills, and worry that their kids will have a lower standard of living than they do. In the first America, the uber wealthy buy $500 million yachts, $270 million mansions. They have private islands all to themselves. They got fleets of jets to take them all over the world. And occasionally they take cool trips on rocket ships that blast off to the edge of outer space. A lot of fun. They also receive the best health care money can buy, and they send their kids to the very best private schools and colleges in the world. In this America, the three wealthiest men, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg, own more wealth than the bottom half of our society. Three people own more wealth than the bottom half of our society. And their wealth is skyrocketing. Musk alone is now worth over $450 billion. And combined, these three men are now worth almost $1 trillion. In the other America, millions of Americans are struggling just to provide for the basic necessities of life. In this America, over 60% of our people live paycheck to paycheck. Millions work for starvation wages. 85 million are uninsured or underinsured, and over 60,000 die each year because they can't afford to go to a doctor on time. In other words, we are living in a nation today where a handful of billionaires have more money than they could spend in 1,000 lifetimes, while at the same time, millions are living in desperation, fear, and are struggling to survive. But let's be clear. Our country is not just experiencing an unprecedented level of income and wealth inequality. Today, the ruling elite have brought about a situation in which we now have more concentration of ownership than we have ever had before. In other words, a small number of giant corporations have enormous control over our economy in sector after sector: healthcare, agriculture, financial services, energy, transportation, you name it. A small number of giant conglomerates control what is produced and how much we as consumers pay for their products. Unbelievably, just 3 Wall Street firms, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, control assets of more than $22 trillion. These 3 Wall Street firms are the major shareholders in 95% of S&P 500 companies, exerting enormous control of the largest corporations in the world. 3 Wall Street firms, unbelievable power. And that is not all in terms of what's going on today. It's not just the billionaire ownership and control over the economy and the media that should concern us. The uber-rich are also buying our government. They are buying our government and undermining American democracy. Never before in our history have we seen a ruling class with so much political power. As a result of the disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, billionaires and their super PACs can spend unlimited sums of money on political campaigns. And that is exactly what they are doing. You get 1 vote. They get to spend unlimited amounts of money. During the 2024 election cycle, just 150 billionaires, 150 people, spent nearly $2 billion to buy politicians who support their agenda and to defeat candidates who oppose their special interests. Billionaires who represent just 0.0005% of our population accounted for 18% of total campaign spending. My friends, that is not democracy. That is not 1 person, 1 vote. That is not what this country is supposed to stand for. In his Gettysburg Address in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln spoke about, quote, a government of the people, by the people, for the people, end quote. Well, sadly today, we have a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, for the billionaire class. We are in a pivotal and unprecedented moment in American history. That's the simple reality. Either we fight aggressively all over this country to create a government and an economy that works for all of us, or we will continue to move rapidly down the path of oligarchy and the rule of the super rich. The choice is clear. We must stand together for democracy and justice. Let's do it. Thank you all very much.
We hope that message set in and just makes people think about what kind of future you guys want going forward. It doesn't matter who's in office, but a lot of people have way too much power, and that doesn't really benefit anybody. So don't sleepwalk into the next 25 years if you're not going to have the control that you think you have as an American, and be mindful of what's going on around you. So that's my message. I'll catch you guys in the next division video. Have a good one. Be safe. Bye-bye.
Because how does the Republican Party do so good?
Hello guys, welcome back again to the channel. So guys, when you actually listen to what Bernie Sanders is saying here, he's talking about something much bigger than Democrats versus Republicans. He's talking about who really has power in America. So guys, this is the kind of video that we are going to watch today. And remember, you are going to buy me a coffee if you're going to click that subscription button. Otherwise, watch until the end. Then I'm going to come back with more insights.
And now I'm going to tell you something that very few people in Congress would tell you. If you are the Republican leadership, and this is what your goals are to give huge tax breaks to the very richest people in this country. Your goals are ultimately to privatize Social Security so that Wall Street can make money from that. Privatize Medicare so the insurance companies can make more money. Privatize education. Do away with public schools.
If those are your goals and you said that to the American people, you think you get a lot of lower? There are many members of the Congress today, Republicans, who not only will not raise the minimum wage, which is $5.15 an hour, you know what they will tell you, honestly? They believe in abolishing the minimum wage. Did you know that? Check it out. Telling you the truth. So that if Americans can work for $3 an hour or $2 an hour, not a problem. Now, if you had an agenda like that and you went before the American people, tax breaks for the rich, destruction of Medicare, destruction of Social Security as we know it, lowering the minimum wage or abolishing it, how many votes do you think you'd get? Not a whole lot. Maybe the richest 1% would vote for you. But that's not a lot of votes. So what do? I've got a problem. You package it. How do you package it? And here I want you to pay attention to me. Because this is bad stuff. I don't mind debating people who say, I was on the Hannity show, Sean Hannity yesterday, and Hannity, extreme right-wing guy, he thinks he loves these tax breaks for the rich and so forth, so we had a little bit of a discussion about that. Actually, it was a loud discussion, matter of fact. But I don't mind people who are upfront about that. Okay, give the rich more tax breaks, we can argue that. But that doesn't win you elections. So this is what you do. What you do is divide people up. When you asked me your question, how do I get elected? I said, I try to bring people together. We fight for women's rights. We support the rights of minorities. We support the rights of workers. We bring the majority of people together. And occasionally, honest people will have differences of opinion. In this room, there will be differences of opinion. But everybody in this room is in agreement that everybody should have health care, right? Question number 2, should we increase funding for education or should we lower funding for education? Raise your hand if you think we should increase funding for education. Okay, you're on the side of the vast majority of Americans. Okay. So on those issues, we bring people together. Now, what do the Republicans try to do? And they use it in what we call, kind of language that they not upfront about. What do? We divide people up by races. Affirmative action becomes one issue. All them black people are getting the jobs that we white people used to have. Split people, working class, white against black. Instead of working together to create decent jobs for all. Those uppity women now, they want the right to choose. We'll split people on the abortion issue. We'll split people up on the gun issue. We'll split people up on religious issues. Do you follow what I'm saying? So you split people up, and then they end up, if you're a middle class person, voting against your own interests, and the rich go laughing all the way to the bank. Okay? And they very often play white workers off against everybody else. And we try to bring people together to say, look, we're all in this boat together, whether you're black or white, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Muslim, whatever you may be. Everybody needs health care. How do we create a health care system that works for all people? Not divide people up. Everybody knows that the kids, young people, do not make it into the middle class unless they have a decent college education. So how do we make college education accessible to all people? Not an expensive proposition. A tiny, tiny fraction of the president's tax breaks for the rich, if we put into financial aid, would make sure that every young person in this country could go to college without going deeply into debt. You know what? The vast majority of the people support us. But in order to do that, we've got to bring everybody together. And many of these, not all, and I'm not here to disparage all Republicans. Some very decent people happen to be conservative. I respect that. But some people who I don't respect will play off women against men, black against white. Oh, the gay issue, very, very big issue. Okay? Straight against gay, right? We're all supposed to hate gay people, so we split that group up. And then the argument, some of us are not patriotic. We had concerns about the war in Iraq. I voted against giving the president authority to the war in Iraq. Well, that makes us unpatriotic. We hate America. Divide those things up. And that's how they succeed. And they succeed with the help of the media. Because the media will not talk about how, in a sense, the common problems that Americans face and how we bring people together. And that's what I believe. I believe that on issues like everybody in this room thinks, I think, that instead of giving tax breaks to the rich, we should increase federal aid to education. Anyone disagree with that? Well, you know what? Most Americans agree with that. All of you think that every American should be entitled to health care. I suspect most of you think we should not have a trade policy which allows corporations to throw American workers out on the street and run to China. Most Americans agree with that. And our job is to bring people together on common interest. And some of these extreme right-wing people, you watch the issues that they talk about. Affirmative action they use to divide. The issue of abortion they use to divide. The issue of guns they use to divide. And our job is to say, let's focus on basic economic issues. How do we expand the middle class? This is a great country. Why is it the average American is working longer hours for low wages than 30 years ago? Let's talk about that. Okay?
Now, my understanding is that Trump was here a couple of days ago, and I'm sure he gave you a speech which will probably be even longer than mine. But I suspect he forgot to tell you a few things. Number one, I doubt very much that he told you that he is a pathological liar. Now, why is that important? It's important because when you are the leader of the most powerful nation on earth, what you say matters, and you can't lie all the time. Because people don't believe you. Second of all, and maybe even more importantly, look, I'm a parent, and I suspect we have a number of parents here in the room. And as parents, we try very hard to raise our kids to be honest, to tell the truth, even when telling the truth is difficult, not to be bullies and pick on people because they may be different than you are. Maybe they have a disability. We teach our kids to be compassionate, to try to love, not hate. And to have somebody who is President of the United States, lies all the time, is a bully, picks on people, is not the kind of example we want for our kids.
All over the country, people are saying, wait a minute, we can't afford housing, we can't afford health care, we can't afford childcare, we can't afford food at the grocery store, and this war now, which will cost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, why? Why? To bomb buildings in Tehran, to force 1 million people in Lebanon from their homes? So it's not just progressives and Democrats. I think you have a lot of conservatives saying, Trump ran on a campaign saying, I'm going to end endless wars. We've got to invest in America, not in these endless wars. And he went back on his word. So I think the polling suggests that whether you're Republicans, Democrats, this is not a war the American people want.
Yeah, there's a poll that said a lot of Americans think that the White House isn't focused enough on domestic issues.
Yeah, no kidding. You know, working class people are having a hard time getting by. 60% of our people live in paycheck to paycheck, while Trump and his billionaire friends have never had it so good. And now we're spending what will amount to many hundreds of billions of dollars on a war that should not be fought. The American
Guys, Sander is warning that America is moving toward what he calls an oligarchy. And if you're wondering what that means, let me make it simple, guys. An oligarchy is basically a system where a small group of extremely wealthy and powerful people have an enormous influence over how the country is run. And Sander is saying that this is becoming serious problem in America. Now, you might be asking yourself, but how can a few billionaires have that much power? Well, that is where things get interesting, guys. Sander points to three major investment companies. That is BlackRock, Vanguard, and the State Street. Together, they manage trillions of dollars in assets. Now, I'm not saying these companies simply walk into Washington and tell politicians what to do. That is not an argument. That is not the argument, guys. The bigger point is that when a small number of financial institutions have enormous economic influence, their decisions can influence huge parts of the economy. And then Sanders asks another uncomfortable question. Who has money to influence American politics? I want you guys to think about elections for a second. We have these political campaigns are incredibly expensive. You know that. During the campaign times, a lot of money is used, guys, to run those campaigns. That is what you should know. Candidates need money for advertising stuff. They need money to travel, organizing, and everything that else that comes with running for office, guys. And this is where Sanders brings up Citizens United. He argues that the Supreme Court decisions opened the door for enormous amount of outside spending in American elections. His concern is simple, guys. If wealth individuals and the powerful organizations can spend a huge amount of money trying to influence elections, does that give them more political influence than the average voter? That is a question that we should be asking ourselves. Because you and I might have one vote, completely true, but somebody with millions of dollars can potentially spend enormous amount of money influencing the political environment around that vote. And this is where Sanders' argument gets even more interesting, guys. He argues that, or he says that there is another way ordinary people can be prevented from challenging concentrated wealth, and that is a true division. Let me explain what he means by saying like that. Imagine, I want you to imagine millions of working class Americans are struggling with the same problem. That is, maybe it can be healthcare is expensive. It can be rent is very expensive. Food is expensive. College is expensive. Wages aren't keeping up with the cost of living, guys. But instead of talking about those economic problems, people can become consumed by political fights over race, abortions, guns, immigrations, and other deeply emotional issues, guys. Now, to be clear, those issues are important to many people. Sanders isn't saying they don't matter. His argument is that these issues can sometimes become wedge issues, issues that push people into opposing camps. And guys, when ordinary people are constantly fighting each other, they may stop asking a bigger question. Why are so many economic decisions benefiting people who already have enormous wealth? That is the question that most of the people they forget asking and end up fighting themselves instead of asking such important questions, guys. That is the heart of a Sanders argument. He's basically saying, don't just look at people you are fighting with. Look at the system you are fighting inside, guys. Because a Democrat and a Republican might disagree about abortion. They might disagree about guns. But both of them could still be struggling to afford health care. Both could be worried about housing. Both could be working long hours and still feeling financially insecure. And Sanders believes that common ground is extremely important. Now, you don't have to agree with Bernie Sanders. You don't have to believe America is already an oligarchy. You don't even have to agree with his solutions. But I think the question he's asking is worth thinking about. When money becomes extremely concentrated, how much influence should the wealth people have over a democracy? And here is the question I want to leave with you guys. If ordinary Americans stopped allowing political differences to completely divide them and started focusing more on the economic problems they have in common, would that change the balance of power in America? That is something worth discussing, guys. So tell me what you think in the comments. If Bernie Sanders exposing a real problem with American democracy, or is he taking his argument too far? Let's have the conversations, guys. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.